Clarity on Fire, a podcast for people who know what they don't want out of their life and career, but aren't sure what they'd rather be doing.
In a world where it's easy to exist, but hard to feel alive, we, Kristen
and Rachel,
2 certified life and career coaches, are here to help you cut through the information overload, get unstuck, and focus not just on how you can have a career you're passionate about, but how to create a whole life that feels fulfilling.
So join us here, where we serve up inspiration and down-to-earth wisdom in a way that only 2 best friends can.
We want you to experience the relief of knowing that, yes, you're allowed to want more out of your life and career.
And no, you don't have to wander through the dark anymore. Our job is to light the fire that shows you the way. Let's go. Hello.
Hey. Where are you in Scotland today? Or are you in Scotland today?
Good question. I arrived in Scotland 2 days ago.
Okay.
And today I'm on the first day of my Highlands 3-day excursion.
Okay.
So I'm going to be...
It's fun to ask you where you are in Scotland today as I'm sitting talking to you at your house.
Yeah. I don't know if this is today or tomorrow or Sunday. I think it's maybe today or tomorrow. I'm going to Skye. Either today or tomorrow, I think.
We didn't go there last time.
I know. There's multiple places I'm going that you and I never saw.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to be there for a lot longer than when you and I were there.
You were only there for a few days.
So yeah, I'm going to be traipsing around the Isle of Skye.
I will be expecting a lot of photos.
Yes. And you're going to be sitting in your house.
I think I'm getting my hair done that day. That's the exciting thing that day.
Wow. Which one was you? Wish you were. Please don't say Kristen. You need more aspirations and dreams if you said that.
I don't even want to be me on that day. I'd rather be in Scotland.
Okay. So
this is...
How many of you are caught up with Forever Alone?
I was going to say, this is
you had 2 weeks to get caught up.
Forever Alone. So I feel like we need to start with that.
Right.
Because I don't know that every single person listening.
Oh, they didn't. They didn't listen to not every. I mean,
Forever Alone. So you might need to set it up for them.
It might not have been everyone's flavor, which I don't understand, but I can sort of respect. I wouldn't be a self-respecting person if I was like, I get why you didn't like my podcast. I'm like, I don't really get it, actually. That's good. I don't know why you wouldn't like it.
I think it applies to everyone.
A high quality piece of content right there. Why not? But there's a part at the very end of chapter 7. This isn't really a spoiler. That I wanted to spend more time diving into in not just a relationship, singledom context, but in a broader life, career, etc. context. And instead of give you a summary of what I talked about, I'm just going to pause and I'm going to insert that clip and you're going to listen to it now. And
so
then
even if you didn't
get it,
even if you didn't want or mean to listen to Forever Alone, here you are listening anyway.
You know, I used to feel such shame and embarrassment for how much I wanted my life to be like the stories I've loved my whole life. So much so that I tried to have smaller, more reasonable desires and became the worst version of myself as a result. Scared, depressed, anxious, hopeless. The best version of me has always been the one who's audacious about what I want out of a relationship. And I'm done apologizing for my ambition. We don't all have the same amount of ambition in every area of life, and that's okay. Some of us are perfectly content with a small, modest townhouse, comfortable, safe, not flashy, but warm and homey. Honestly, my career ambitions are probably somewhere in that realm. It matters to me, but it's not where my big dreams have ever lived. But man, I've got skyscraper ambitions when it comes to love. And I'm not talking some ugly thing that doesn't even win Skyscraper of the Year award in Architectural Digest. It's got to be beautiful and impressive and very much larger than life. I think I might have more ambition in love than just about anyone I know. Okay, so that was that part. And I want to talk about ambition and how it's not the same in every walk of life. And what's funny is that we get questions sometimes about, do passion profiles apply to different areas of life beyond just career? And the answer is, I think they kind of do, but it's messy. So I want to explore, like, what if we just kind of open a can of worms and talk about, can you be a fire starter in one area of your life? And could you potentially be a thriver somewhere else? And is that weird? Does that change something? How possible is it that it's not just relevant to your career?
I think this is so fascinating. We started to have this conversation a few weeks ago, and I'm glad to have it now more in depth on the podcast. Partially because I feel like it's very validating of a whole concept we came up with. If it has lasted for many years, continues to be true for people, and now is starting to show how relevant it is outside of its original intention. Because it was supposed to be, what are your values and preferences and how you're wired in a work context? But it's becoming increasingly clearer to us that it has a lot of relevancy outside of work.
Yeah.
And I think it can change. I think your profile can be different.
I think it can.
In other areas of your life, which makes it really interesting and kind of messy and I think fun.
Yeah. And it's not a one-to-one. So we have to figure this out. Let's just use me as the guinea pig for now, because that's easy. So in my normal life, actually, let's back up, because what if people don't really know about passion profiles? I'm not going to sit here and give you like a whole lecture about passion profiles.
We've done that many, many
All
times.
I'm going to say is that what it measures, each profile, fire starter, tribe member, thriver, side hustler, is a different combination of valuing time, money, and passion. You could also call it creativity if you wanted to. So fire starters, when they value time, they value unlimited. They value a lot of flexibility, a ton of freedom. When they value money, it's very similar. So they value, having a lot of very few ceilings on how much money they can make. They really want their money and their passion to be tied together. They do want to get paid to do something that they care about. Whereas, you look at a tribe member, they value their time differently. They would rather be spending time with a community. And if that means getting to kind of go to a 9-to-5 job, they don't feel often as trapped by the confines of a 9-to-5 structure the way a fire starter would, because their value around time has more to do with their feelings of community. And are they contributing to a mission that they really deeply care about? And so it's
with people
hard.
And impacting people that they care about. It's a lot about the people.
I'm not going to go through each one of them, but all I want to say is, like, that's how you kind of know whether you're a fire starter or a tribe member or a thriver or a side hustler, is that the way you value those three big things are different than the other sets of people.
Yep.
And of course, you can be a combination of a fire starter and a thriver, or a tribe member and a side hustler, whatever. But for me, in my career, I am some combination of fire starter and thriver. We call that a fire thriver, which can be a little bit annoying at times, because on the one hand, I value a ton of freedom and I'm very entrepreneurial, and I hate. Actually, this is just always true. I hate people telling me what to do. I am bossy. I don't like being bossed around. I would much rather have my time and my freedom than anything else, like anything else. I'd rather have less money and more time, because I can always make more money. I cannot create more time. And yet, on the other hand, there's a part of me that's also a thriver who values stability and predictability, and who doesn't want to work like 12-hour days, and is not necessarily like an endless machine of ideas and energy the way some pure fire starters are. I like the lifestyle of owning a business as much as I like owning a business. It's a big part of it is, I get to clock out and I get to, go on a walk, or I get to read a book in the middle of the day if I want to. And that to me is really enjoyable. And that's one of the biggest thriver themes, is your passion is kind of getting to live life. It's not necessarily a thing. And often you don't even want your passion and your career to be combined when you're a thriver, because it robs it of its intrinsic joy. So then think about how dissonant that can feel in your mind when you're someone who's like, I want to combine my career and my passion, and I don't want to combine my career and my passion. How do you do both of those things at the same time? We can, Chris, I have learned how to balance it. It requires having good boundaries. It requires being really good at feminine energy, like recharging and knowing your limits and being good at just kind of flowing and creating a work-life balance, all of which I've been able to do. But this is such a long lead up. As you just heard me say when I talked about skyscrapers and townhouses, I'm a fucking fire starter in the arena of relationships.
Full on. Because you are part fire starter.
I really think
in your career. But I think you and I have both felt bad for a while for not being pure fire starters in career.
Yeah.
And eventually accepted, and I think I'll speak for myself, embraced my thriver side in career. But neither of us at all would be a full fire starter career.
No, never. And never have I ever.
In this other area of your life,
townhouse, I have like maybe somewhere between. So I think like shitty townhouse is on one end of the spectrum, right? And then there's like, I don't know, skyscraper or like one of those skyscrapers that has like palm trees coming out the side of it in Dubai. Like that's what we're talking about. Like there's some pretty big spectrums. I think in career, I'm not a shitty townhouse. I might be like a very nice single family home in a very nice neighborhood or something. Yep. But I'm not skyscraper. I don't care that hard. Like it's not where so
we would be at a very different place in business.
Oh, I would make 7 figures if I cared. Because I have all of the wherewithal, all the smarts, all the talent, I could do it. I just don't care enough to have made that much money.
Right. The Thriver part's too strong.
But I really think that it's not, I want to figure out how do we change, because I am a fire starter when it comes to love. I just said so in that clip. But you can't quite call it a one-to-one analogy because how do we account for time and money in a relationship? Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes. I don't know that it's the exact
feel that that's true.
I don't know that it's the exact same way of measuring, but I think the
sentiment behind it is the
characteristics of a passion profile can show up differently in different, because you're right. When we're talking about a passion profile measures time, money, and passion. Well, that's not really the things you would measure how you would approach a romantic relationship or your health or family or other areas of life that we might be applying this to. But there are characteristics of a fire starter, for example, passionate, intense, big energy around it, kind of consuming and needing it to take up a big space in your life. That is also true about fire starters, and that can apply to any other area. And same with all the other profiles.
Yes. Okay. So what you're saying, and this will help, because it's so stupid, because all we did was introduce a problem that people didn't know that they had. And now we're but don't worry about it because it's not really a problem. Like we're like, oh, but you can't really measure. They weren't thinking about how to apply their passion profile to other areas of their life, probably. And so now we're like, but you could, but it's really hard. But here's how you might do it. They're like, why did you even tell me this was a problem? I could have lived in ignorance. You know what I mean?
Because I think it's another awareness tool.
But what you're saying is that if you zoom in, it kind of falls apart a little bit, because no, you can't measure your relationships on the spectrum of like time and money.
Because you're not looking for the same things from your relationships as you're looking for out of your career.
But what you're saying is that the value system is probably similar, or like what the values of a fire starter, the values of a tribe member,
and the characteristics.
True, across different areas of your life.
I think that's probably true.
So I can be a fire thriver who values balance and who values some sort of balance between passion and intensity, but also like stability and predictability and like, not giving as much of an F, to be honest.
Not needing it to be the end all be all.
Like totally fine with an 8. Totally fine with an 8 out of 10. That's fine. That's perfectly
pure
fine.
Fire starter is never going to be.
No, they're like 10 or nothing. 8, like 10 or less, man.
In any arena of life.
Exactly. And that's how I feel in relationships. I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Now I know that like 10 out of 10 exists. Like it's not fantasy. I know that it exists. And if you're like, I don't know about that, listen to fucking Forever Alone. That was the whole goddamn point.
And you made it just to make it. Like that's a real fire starter move to say, this is important enough to me. I don't even have an exact reason I'm not making money off of this right off the bat. I mean, like it was pure passion. It was just pure, I need to get this out into the world. And that's a fire starter. That's a fire starter move.
It was a very know-it-all thing. It was like, I have so much opinion on this. I have so much to say, and I will absolutely not go to my grave, which is a very dramatic thing to say. But it kind of felt like that. I will not proceed in life without having said what I want to say on this. Mm-hmm. And I sat down and bitch, I wrote a whole book. It is 45,000 plus words. And it's not, it would probably be polished more and like potentially augmented if it were when it's published and it becomes a real book. I wrote a whole book in like 4 months. Mm-hmm. Not even, probably less than that. Like maybe 3 or 4 months. And not only just wrote the book, that would be an achievement in and of itself. Actually created a whole podcast and produced the whole podcast in that same time I was doing all of that.
Exactly.
And I had a job. And the last time I cared that much about anything, I couldn't even tell you. It was probably at the beginning of us starting this business when I cared enough to put that much energy into something.
And I do think we were treating career and business more like pure fire starters at the very beginning.
We were.
Out of necessity in a way, because it takes a lot to get it off the ground.
Well, and there was a fire lit under us because we were kind of miserable.
Right.
And we really wanted to do something that mattered.
The thriver side of me has grown over the years.
Your thriver side has taken over.
It has taken
like
over.
A weed.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
And I'm embracing it.
Yeah, that's fine. It's just like double snare. It's going to take her down.
I don't think that I am 100% fire starter in any arena of my life.
That's not Kristen. Kristen's got too much type 9
but now that
to
I'm
be a heavy fire starter.
About this, now I'm like, Enneagram and passion for fire. Whoa, that's too much. But there's some synergy there for sure.
Yeah.
But now that we're talking, this is why I love side chats. And also,
you're allowed to just meander and figure things out as you go.
We're talking and thinking and processing all at once. I have never felt any inclination toward a tribe member at work. I recognize it in others and I understand it as a concept, but that's never been me. But in more romantic, you're talking about romantic relationships. You're a fire starter. I'm a tribe member. That's where I'm a tribe member. Mm-hmm. All of those values, that's what I'm there for. I'm just there for the collaboration and the I don't mind a routine. I don't mind kind of the structure is normal to me. Like a normal, I don't need to reinvent the wheel, but I just want.
It's a nice house. Exactly. It doesn't have to be palm trees.
It doesn't have to be palm trees,
but it's skyscraper.
But it's a nice house, and it's more about we're doing this thing together than we're reinventing anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. But you want to know why I'm laughing? Is because I thought what you were going to say, and I know you wouldn't say this, but I thought what you were going to say, and there's a part of this that's kind of true for tribe members. It's more about what did you say? How did you say it?
We're in this thing together.
And it's less about the exact person than the fact that you're doing it with someone together.
And I've never believed, and I still don't believe that there's one soulmate for me.
I don't necessarily, to be clear, I don't necessarily believe that either. I know that people would think that I do, and I don't. I think you can have multiple soulmates. It's just that I maintain, and I've said this 800 times, and I will say it again because it is relevant. Kristen could have married 1 out of every 25 men that she met. And I genuinely... I've
been on online dating. I know that's probably still a generous...
I genuinely still believe that.
Maybe 1 in 100, not a 1 in 25.
I think it's okay. It's somewhere between 25 and 100. I really don't think you would need to meet 100 men. I feel like if you lined up 25...
Is this an average sampling of the...
of the world?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Well...
I don't know.
Can we split the difference and say 50?
No, maybe. We'll see.
Okay.
But
we're never going to try it. What I'm saying is that I really think that you could be content with 1 out of every 50 men. I really think it's less than that. And
I think it's more than that.
Okay. But that's because you are very good at making things work. Sometimes that's to your detriment. Sometimes you will overlook things.
And it has been in the past.
Yes.
That's why the 1 in 25 maybe in the past. Not anymore.
Okay. Well, whatever. it is still true that I could not marry one out of every 50 or 100.
It is true.
Men.
You are far more.
1,000's not enough either.
Yeah. Particular, is that the right word?
Yeah.
And
well, it's not just particular.
Part of this is Enneagram too. I'm like, I feel like we can't not talk about the Enneagram a little bit here because
I agree. Because
part of being a type 9 is you are by nature more adaptable.
Yeah.
And
I'm a type 4.
I know the individual
and type 1. There's like rigidity and a desire for complete originality at the same time. You can't be basic enough to marry one out of every 50 people when that's how you're wired.
Right. And a type 9 who's the peacemaker and then right after that type 2, which is the helper and the like connector, like the people, that's what it's about for me. It's about the tribe member values actually. And I'm like, I never ever thought of myself as a tribe member, but in that capacity, that's what I'm there for. I'm interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, it is. Okay. So how do I talk about ambition?
I'm like, I wish we had a version of the quiz that you could take for all these different, because if you take it, you're going to take it and you're going to get your work result because that is how the quiz is structured and it's on purpose. We kind of need a relationships version at some point. But like that's a later project for me to figure that out. Well, if we were a fire starter in business, it would be but I might care enough to figure that out. True. Because I'm more of a fire starter in relationships. Does that apply to relationships when you combine work with relationships? It probably drags it down a little bit. But again, I was willing to write a whole book and do a whole podcast with absolutely no money promised. Would you have called that work? Did that feel like the same way that working in a career does? It didn't really feel like work. It just felt like a project, like a personal project. I don't think I sat down and was like, I am now working on a personal project. Well, I'm trying to ask you now to think back because you know what it feels like to do work. No, it didn't feel like work. It felt like something I wanted to do. Its own thing. And sometimes work doesn't really feel like something I want to do. Which, I don't know, people who are listening to this who I'm coaching, you're going to think that I'm talking about you. And that's not really what I mean. It's not about the people. It's about the people. The thriver part. Who's like, I like my work and I like having my time to do and I like all the other stuff in life. And I want both. Yeah. I like what the work enables me to do. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about how this intersects with ambition, because my original point in that clip is that it's okay to have a different level of ambition according to other, to different areas of your life. Like you're allowed to be more ambitious in love than you are in career or vice versa. And I have a friend who is the exact opposite of me. Her big skyscraper dreams have always been like business and money. It's like, I want to be the CEO. I could give a shit less about ever being that level of career. You would call her either a pure fire starter, maybe a little side hustler, but she would call herself a pure side hustler, or I'm sorry, a pure fire starter. So that's the energy that she's bringing to her career. But I think that with relationships, she's way more of a thriver, and she can disagree with me if she thinks I've typed her wrong on that. But she's straight up told me like, oh yeah, I would be fine with like getting to like a 7 in my relationship right now. Like that doesn't honestly, like that's fine. I'm like, okay. Kind of some thriver energy. It just, I don't understand it. So, and I enjoy it. And it also makes other areas of my life better. But what I'm saying is is it an insult or is it incorrect to say that thrivers are less ambitious than fire starters? Or is that just a friggin' fact? Because I think and it comes to, it's what are we ambitious about? I think a thriver is ambitious about having a full balanced life. That's true. So ambition, I think we measure often in success, or no, even success doesn't matter. No, ambition is just that pure energy that you have to succeed at something, to be the best at something, to be at the pinnacle, not the best, but like to reach the pinnacle of something. Like at least you're Olympian, not high school gymnast, right? Mm-hmm. And so when I think of fire starters, I think of people who are very naturally ambitious. Mm-hmm. But again, that ambition doesn't have to translate to other areas of your life, like my friend. Sometimes it is. And so it's actually not. So here's the thing. It's not totally accurate to say that I'm a fire starter,
when it comes to love, because what that implies is that fire starter and ambition are synonymous. You know what I'm saying?
I see. I'm thinking of it a little bit differently. I'm thinking of it as
all this is doing is confusing people. This is the most confusing episode we've put out in a long time.
Well, I don't know.
Whatever. We're trying to make sense of something, and maybe it works, and maybe
I'm not sure if we'll wrap a bow on it at the end or not. But I think ambition can be lasered in on one thing, or I think ambition, like that's what a fire starter does. A fire starter, it's almost, I won't say impossible, but it would be really hard for a fire starter to be a fire starter in every area of their life because they're so honed in on that one thing that their ambition is a laser on one area of life. So the other areas almost have to take a little bit of a backseat, not because they don't care, but because you can't throw all your energy at everything. But I think that's kind of what thrivers are doing. They're throwing their energy. They still have ambition. It's just diffuse instead of a laser point. They just want all these areas to be great instead of one area to be freaking awesome. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
I think you could be a thriver in every area of life. I'm not saying, I'm saying you could also be something else. Like I think I'm a thriver at work and a tribe member in romantic relationships. But I think it would be okay to be a thriver across the board. I don't know if you could do that.
That's true.
As a fire starter.
I mean, you could try, but you'd be one of the most high maintenance, burnt out people potentially.
You'd be like a Tony Robbins or something who's
I mean, you'd be a little exhausting,
intense all the time.
And that's fine. Some people really like that. Fine. He's been married for many years,
but that's more rare.
But I doubt his wife is the same way because you couldn't have two of
I think you could be a side hustler in every area of life. Same thing.
Yeah,
because you're balancing a lot of different things.
You're balancing around.
Diffuse ambition. I think side hustlers can be very ambitious, but they're not ambitious about just one thing at a time.
Okay.
They have split ambition. Is that a thing?
Yeah.
I think it's a thing.
I think that's a thing. But you might not make as much progress if you have split ambition. It reminds me.
And that's one of the challenges.
It reminds me of the essentialism thing where it's like you can make sort of a millimeter of progress in a million directions, or you can make a mile of progress in one direction.
But do you want to go in one direction or do you want to go in a million directions?
You can go in a bunch of directions.
You might say, I don't want to just go in one direction, even if I could make way more progress in that one direction, because I would get bored.
Okay. So I feel like we need some more concrete examples. Like if we're just talking
I'm thinking of another example. Okay. I'm thinking of the example, we've talked about career. We've talked about romantic relationships.
I feel like people would want to know more about how would I show up in a romantic relationship if I was a side hustler? Like, but I don't know. I mean, just look at the values of each of them, right? So like side hustlers value variety.
Side hustlers might have a harder time settling down.
They might.
Because they might keep worrying.
They might have FOMO.
Like, am I missing out?
If I marry this guy, am I going to be missing out on what this guy could have had to offer?
Is it affecting the way you're dating? Probably. You're probably chatting with a bunch of different people.
But you don't really need to be talking to all of them.
So I can absolutely see how this would show up characteristic wise. Again, not the exact way we measure it. But another area of life that I'm thinking of, and I have a couple of clients who I think would identify as certain quote unquote profiles in parenthood.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of a client I had a while back, and I think he would have said, I'm a fire starter in being a good dad. Like a career is important to me and my relationship is important to me. But more than anything, I just really, really want to be a good dad to my two kids.
Yeah.
That would be the number one thing he would pour himself into. And everything else just supports that. And I'm thinking of another friend who's like, I'm probably kind of a thriver in
as a
parenthood.
mom.
Yeah. And that's fine.
It's not like she's neglecting her kids.
Exactly.
It's just like, that's not where my biggest ambitions have ever lived is in being.
I'm going to be I know I'm going to be a good mom. I am a good mom.
I don't live to mother.
Right.
Right. And some people do.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of areas of life that we could apply this to, but I think that's one that a lot of people will maybe relate to and have potential self-judgment around how they're doing it. Should I be more like a quote unquote fire starter and my kids should be the number one thing in my life and that's all that I pour myself into and everything else comes second? If that's your biggest value, maybe, but not necessarily. Or is it bad to be a thriver? in parenthood.
No.
Just like it's not bad to be a thriver at work. No. In fact, that might show a great example to future kids that I have a whole life and I want you to have a whole life. So there's nothing good or bad. I think that's the main thing I want to talk about here is when it comes to this idea of ambition or what I should care about or what I should be doing, what I should be putting more of my energy into. There is no should. That's the whole point of passion profiles. We were just applying it to work for a long time. There's no right way to work. And in the same vein, there's no right way to approach or prioritize other areas of your life either. Mm-hmm. It's okay to approach them in whatever way makes sense and feels right and aligned for you. And I think you've probably, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you've probably had moments where you wondered, am I too much? If I'm bringing a fire starter.
What are you talking about? Wonder. You listen to Forever Alone.
Well, I don't want to speak for you. I want you to be able to.
That's kind of one of the whole points.
Right. Like, is it okay to be a fire starter in love, essentially?
Yeah. And my answer was yes.
Was ultimately yes. But I think you had a lot of moments.
Yeah. It took me a while to believe that.
Where you thought that's probably unrealistic or I shouldn't bother so much.
Yeah. And then I became like a worse version of myself.
And the same is true with people in career. I should care more. Why do I care so much? I should care less. No. Whatever your desires are and your preferences are and your values are, that's allowed. That's all passion profiles were ever meant to do. It's just give you permission to put work in the right context of your life in a way that feels good. Now we're expanding it and saying passion profiles give you permission to put every other area of your life in context in a way that feels good and aligned. Is that a bow?
I don't know. It's a pretty ugly one if it is one. I just feel like this conversation was so all over the place. I'm not sure you can tie a bow on it. Can you tie a bow on like splat? Probably not. But like, moral of the story, there is no such thing as one kind of ambition. And it's okay to have completely varying degrees of desires and ambitions across every area of your life. And we have this belief that the only respectable kind of ambition is the big kind, is the skyscraper kind, except when other people are shaming you because they're afraid that it's not possible. And so they try to convince you that you can't have the skyscraper and that you're being unrealistic. Like we're so hypocritical. On the one hand, we always are, we're like more is better and bigger is better. And, if you're not reaching high and aiming really high and being super ambitious, then you're doing it wrong. And yet you should also settle because like you're getting old and you probably should get married before you wither and die and no one wants you anymore.
Well, think about that. It seems the most obvious in romantic love.
But we do that with people in their jobs too.
Everywhere. And we do that with parents and all the examples we've given and more. You should be the best parent you possibly can be.
But why are you trying so hard?
Yeah, but also like your kids are not your life. You should get to care about your work and care about the rest of your life too. Like what?
Yeah, it's racket. The whole thing is just dumb.
And so it would be no wonder. All we're saying is it would be understandable if you were like, I don't know where these things fit or what I'm supposed to think or how much I'm supposed to want or what's too much or what's not enough. And I think the value of passion profiles is that it helps you figure out for you, what do I really care about and where does this fit? Because there isn't a right answer and everyone's going to make you feel like you care too much or you don't care enough or you're doing too much or you're not doing enough or whatever. And it gets really confusing really fast.
So there are no rules.
That's why this is so messy. Because there aren't rules.
You're just allowed to want what you want in every area of your life. And some can be townhouses and some can be skyscrapers and some can be things in the middle. And that's normal. It would be weird if you had the same desires and preferences across the board for everything in your life. It's just that would not be normal or easy. Like we need balance. We need some things to be super ambitious and some things to be more chill.
I'm thinking of something that we learned about in coach training a long, long time ago, the wheel of life. And essentially what it does is it's a wheel, it's a circle, and it's broken down. It looks like a pie that you cut up into, I think it's 8 slices.
Something like that.
And all the slices on the wheel of life are the same size. But the reality is, for each one of us, the slices are probably slightly different sizes. Some are more important. Some you want to put more energy into. Some, you could make them a little bit smaller and it wouldn't bother you so much.
Right.
And that's what we're talking about is your pie doesn't have to be 8 perfectly equal slices. Everything is exactly the same priority.
Psychopathic, actually.
No, and at different phases of life, the pie might change.
Right.
Slices might change size.
Right.
And that's okay. It's okay. You can be more ambitious at certain times in certain areas, and then it might go away, and then it might come back or it might not.
Mm-hmm.
All good.
Mm-hmm. I think half of my pies is like relationship stuff. Yeah. And
how much of your pie is fun? I'm thinking of that as one of the categories.
Like a very small sliver.
I forget all of them, but that was one of them. Fun and enjoyment.
Yeah, it's like a little like a tester slice. Oops. Don't act like I'm not a good time though. It's just I'm not. I don't. And it's not like a oh my god I'm so fun. I don't even understand. If someone told me be fun, I would just stand there and like blink. I wouldn't know what to do. Okay, we need to wrap this up. So tell me what you thought about that because I don't know. All we did was we strode into a room. We said, here's a pie. And we dropped it on the floor and it splattered everywhere. And then we walked away.
We're like, eat some pie if you want.
Bye. Okay. Well, I don't know. Leave us a comment. Share what you think about this.
I do like the idea. And I know we're still early stages of exploring passion profiles in other areas of life. So at least tell me what you think about that because we've never talked about that before.
I could see myself, figuring out how to make it work for other areas too.
Mm-hmm. So that's kind of the theme of this.
Well, tell us where your ambition differs. That I'm interested in. What are you most ambitious about? And maybe are you now getting permission to be more or less ambitious about some things than you thought you needed to? Because there's no right amount of ambition to have. There's just your amount. Mm-hmm. But just know if you have more ambition around something, it might take longer to get that thing. Because it's, again, more complicated to build a skyscraper often than it is to get that shitty townhouse. Like anyone can pretty much find a shitty townhouse. It's not that hard. It's harder to construct that skyscraper. It takes longer. It's more complicated. And, but again,
just like if you're a fire starter, you could go get a job or you could make your own job. Making your own job's complicated. It takes a while to get it going,
but worth it.
But it might be the best thing to figure.
It might be the only thing that can satisfy you.
It might be.
You just might be a little bit more particular and high maintenance, and that's fine. But it also means you have a higher capacity for real enjoyment, I think, because high risk, high reward. Mm-hmm. So, FYI, we're taking a 2-week break. We will not be back next week. We will be back at the end of this month with our bonus book club. Yep. Because I'm traveling and it was just easier not to force ourselves to find an interview.
And you've gotten a lot of extra podcast content with Forever Alone.
Yeah, you should not be
couple
upset.
Of months.
Yeah, so, if you want something from us and you haven't listened to that, well, do that. Or I don't know, go back to the other 300 episodes that you haven't maybe listened to.
Plenty for you to choose from if you are missing us next week.
Yeah. Okay.
Otherwise, we will see you again in 2 Fridays.
Yes. Okay.
All right. Bye for now.
What do the Scottish say to say goodbye? I don't think they have a special goodbye.
I don't think they do.
Oh, damn. I can't say ciao or something. Cheers.
It's kind of British, but it's fine.
Whatever.
It works.
Bye.
Bye.